Two guys either side of 50 with one dream to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Welcome back, Pilgrims. Here we are at the Missing Links Golf Show Special Edition. This is something new, Andy Walker.
Yes, very new.
Special edition of the Missing Links Golf Show. Pilgrims, we had a fantastic experience recently. Our very first guest appearance on somebody else's show.
I know. How exciting is that?
It was awesome. A good friend of the show, Josh Nichols, the mental golf coach, who featured on the Missing Links Golf Show back in episode 18 at the beginning of March.
Yes.
We had a fantastic chat with Josh. We learned a huge amount about the mental side of golf, and he was so generous with his knowledge and his time. And we felt that we got on really well with Josh. And then Andy Walker, we saw something pop up on the social media platform known as X, formerly known as Twitter, which kind of caused us to reach out and say g'day to Josh.
Yeah, look, and it was actually I was sort of looking through and finding Josh on X because I wanted to sort of follow his posts, just because that chat that we had and the knowledge that he's got was it was
awesome.
Oh, it was great, and I got so much value from the conversation. And then he's put out at the same time as, or maybe a couple of days after we had this chat, he's posted on X, and I read it, I think the week after we had a chat to Josh. It might have been episode 19 that I read it out, but I want to read part of it again because this is what sort of sparked this second conversation that we've just had with Josh. So he was talking about he'd been away on a golf trip to Myrtle Beach a golf club. And
sounds nice.
Yeah, so he was talking about feeling refreshed and that it's an awesome little burst of golf and he loved every second of it. He actually found something in his swing that sort of got him a little bit of motivation again and was keen to get back into playing golf. And I quote, that was all awesome, but that's also really frustrating because that's the only plans for golf I have for the foreseeable future. Yesterday's round is the biggest tease of all. I made a little tweak to my swing and it led to the best ball striking I've had in years, which makes me want to instantly get back to work on my game and play in a tournament ASAP. But that's simply not going to happen. I run junior golf tournaments every year as another source of income, and those are about to kick up. I'm going to the Masters, and we're doing some other family trips. None of my future plans in the next 6 months involve competitive golf. So am I supposed to be sad, like I'm mourning the death of an old friend? Or am I supposed to grow up and move on? Because in fact, it isn't an old friend who just died, maybe just golf. I've got a family and a business and a house and responsibilities. So do I take away from those important things and play golf regardless? Or do I set aside my little golf desires and do what reality demands of me? I don't know the answer. And that, when I read that, like that just, it almost kicked me in the guts. I just went, that is just what we talked about. And that's when, I shared it with you. We had a conversation about it, and it all sort of went from there. We reached out to Josh to say, yeah, buddy, we hear, let's get together and have another conversation. Obviously, it's been a couple of months because we're all got pretty busy schedules, but we managed to catch up a few days ago with Josh, pretty much about this subject, and it was one of the most vulnerable discussions I've had with anyone, really. It got really deep at different times.
It sure did. It was very cool. I think a couple of things with it. I think, firstly, it's a topic that strikes at the very heart of what this show is about,
Yeah.
and that is, literally juggling all of those obligations of life, all of the things that we have to do, all of the things that we choose to do, all of the things that we love doing, our families, our work, other things, as well as trying to pursue this dream, this hobby, this outlet, whatever you want to refer to it as, which takes a lot of time
Yeah.
to be good at, and it can certainly come across as a selfish pursuit at times, but at the same time, it's important to us. It's important to so many people that love the game, and we get a lot out of it, and it makes us better people as well.
Yeah.
So it's a massive topic. Also, I think this conversation, it dived into a few other areas, just more so about life rather than
Yeah.
golf. But what I loved about it, Andy Walker, it's the level of conversation. I think that as guys, we just don't have enough of them. We
No.
don't we don't probably, use the word vulnerable. We don't probably allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to our mates, to people around us enough, because we're blokes. We've got to
Yeah.
together, and we've got to be stoic, and we've got to be all those sorts of things. But I think there's massive value in it, because we all fight, and we all juggle, and we all try and do the best we can, and we all know that, we let people down, we let ourselves down, all of those competing emotions. So this chat goes into all of it. It was very unscripted. We had not even talked about a framework for where this
Mm.
conversation was going to go.
Yeah.
We just jumped on a call. For Josh, it was early in the morning. For us, it was late at night.
Yep.
So that probably changed things a bit too. But I think
And
it
it
was
was
an
just a
awesome chat.
very natural conversation. Like
Yeah.
it just went where it went, and yeah, there was no script to it. It was very unstructured, and it just led in along different paths. And yeah, as I said, it was just a very natural conversation between three blokes.
It was really cool, and I think we'll jump into that conversation, right about now. But before we do, I just want to say, Josh, thanks for the opportunity to talk about that topic. Thanks for raising it. It's really important. Thanks for having us on your show. We really enjoyed it. It was nice to repay the favor, just a little bit of all the knowledge that you gave us, for us to be able to give the benefit of our extra 17 or 18 or so years on the planet, that we were able to share. That was amazing. To all of the new pilgrims that have joined our show as a result of hearing us on Josh's show, welcome to the pilgrimage. We're thrilled to have you.
100%.
And yeah, share away. We love talking about golf. We love talking about self development. We love talking about how the two things combine. We want to get better at stuff, and we want to do the best we can. So, shall we jump into it, Andy Walker?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. See you on the other side, pilgrims.
Good.
Mm,
Good. Yeah.
mm.
Yeah. So I don't know. I know we kind of had an initial thing of we want to talk about, back when we kind of scheduled this was like, let's
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about priorities or fatherhood or that kind of thing. Did you guys have anything particular you wanted to talk about? Because I have questions.
Yeah. I mean, I, I think when we read that tweet that you wrote,
Mm,
we both
Yeah.
of us, and it was around about exactly the same time that we had our first conversation on our podcast, and both of us sort of had a chat about it afterwards, and we felt like you had written that tweet about the life that we were living,
mm,
which was
100%.
the catalyst for what our show is legitimately all about.
mm,
And that is about not going quietly into the night of middle age.
mm,
It is really the attitude,
mm,
um, that we want to have a crack at life, and we don't want to just let it pass us by. And it feels hard.
mm,
There is so many reasons and so many obstacles and so many obligations that get in your way. But if you genuinely want to have a crack at something, then there are ways. And that is what one of the things that we're searching for, is to try and do it ourselves, and hopefully to inspire other people on that journey of how you might be able to do that, and how you might be able to actually make a difference. And and make the most of all your little bits of time that are here, there, and everywhere, and hold yourself accountable and make a big goal and have a crack at it. And it's amazing what you can do. And hopefully, because so many people that responded to your tweet, they were all saying the same thing. They're like, yes, Josh, this is me. I'm living this. I don't know what to do. If you ever figure it out, let us know. And I just think that we don't have all the answers, but I feel like we're searching for the missing links, but we're coming up with some of those answers in that quest, in our pilgrimage. It's now become known as a pilgrimage. Can't remember if it was when we spoke to you first. I think it probably was.
Sounds right. It sounds
well,
familiar.
I think it was actually during our
right
conversation that we came up with was because you quite like the pilgrimage terms.
Yeah,
So
I
think
it
that sort of started, and it's just snowballed from there. In that we now we don't talk about our journey anymore. We talk about our pilgrimage. And
what's the difference?
And our listeners aren't our listeners anymore. That they're our pilgrims.
Our listeners are pilgrims. Right. The difference is that the pilgrim, for us, really, the pilgrimage is a journey with a purpose.
Okay.
So,
right, it's not aimless.
Way to explain it.
Right.
Yeah, it's and it also is not just about the destination, but it's about all of the things and the experiences and the lessons learned along the way. So it's kind of cool from that perspective.
It also brings a lot more emotion, I think, into it as well. Like there's meaning and there's emotion and there's
importance.
It's just got a lot stronger, I guess, feeling towards a pilgrimage rather than a journey.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you guys be happy to know I figured it all out, how to have a perfectly balanced life. So I'm gonna
We're done.
Spill out all the answers to you today. No, I've kind of set up my own kind of pilgrimage. That's not a terrible way to put it for me, but for me it feels maybe more like a all or nothing pursuit. So it's actually less about what happens between now and my end result, which I don't know is helpful or not, but my goal is to get back into the USGA Mid-Am, where I finished runner-up in 2017, and I was exempt into the next 3 and did well in one of them, but ever since I haven't been exempt, I've had to try to qualify, and I haven't qualified to get back into one. So it's the kind of the reckoning with I'm not the same player I used to be. I can't just roll out of bed and play good. I don't get the time to practice like I used to. Last year, I shot a 77 in qualifying and felt pretty good about it, and which was kind of a reality check a little bit to say I'm not the same player anymore. So that might be a journey rather than a pilgrimage, because that's my kind of plant the flag in the ground, and what happens between now and then, I guess, doesn't matter as much. It's just every day I'm practicing to get better to qualify for that. And ultimately I'd love to win it someday. I finished runner up. So I know I was that close. And then, so I want to actually win it, but that has just a very a final thing. And you guys have final things too. But I think the difference there is you guys are really interested in the along the way. I am too, but back when I finished runner up, I did that already kind of. So it's like I went on that pilgrimage for myself, played tournaments along the way, see how good I can get. And now it's okay, I've done that already. I just want to get back to this one tournament. So I don't know if that's healthy or unhealthy or helpful or unhelpful. It probably will create more pressure rather than take away pressure from the actual qualifier, because it's 364 days is me trying to get good just for one 18-hole round.
One day.
Yeah. And that's pretty consequential. So that time will tell if that's helpful or not. But that's what I've set up for myself. And
Mm.
and everything else in life, I have to kind of have a relationship with it of, is it blocking me from pursuing that, which can make me angry? Or is it, or do I try to mold it more into a pilgrimage and say, these things are part of my life, part of my pilgrimage to get to that point, and I'm going to use those. I'm reading the book, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. He's done 10 or
Mm.
so really, really good books. And his whole thing is not just avoiding obstacles, but using obstacles as the way to get to your ultimate destination. So this is kind of where my head is at right now. Of
Yeah, 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 yeah.
things feel like they're blocking me from reaching my end point, but I know that's not the way to go across the next 3 months till the qualifier. I don't know if that.
You know what's
I've
cool
listened.
about this? Sorry, I was just going to say what's cool about this is it is two completely different approaches,
Mm,
and it's not a case of one being right or the other one
mm,
being right. They're different approaches,
mm.
um, and then there's a lot to unpack in that. But like,
Yeah.
but then what? Okay,
Right.
so
Right.
so if you go to the mid am and you win it,
Well, then
okay,
I
well
go
there's
play
a
in the
then.
Masters. So
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
that'd
know.
be
There's
pretty cool.
there's a very cool. There's a very cool. Then
yeah.
what?
But
You
then
go to the
what?
mid am and you don't, and then what?
Right.
Like I yeah, that's an interesting question, I think, as
Yeah.
well.
Well, the situation there is because it's always going to be something difficult for me to achieve.
Mm,
I'll never just be able to. I mean, if I finish well in it again, I'll get exempt, and the burden will be lifted off, and say I won't have to qualify, so I won't have to practice as hard. But if let's say this August I don't qualify, then I have to get back to work to do it again. But let's say I do qualify and make it, and you know, don't play great. Okay, well, I need to get better so I can play better next year. So it has a kind of a pull to it that says, all right, Josh, you've got this thing. You need to be better in order to play well in it, or in order to play in it at all. So yeah, but then what? Like, what's this all for? Is it just a completely selfish ambition of Josh to play well in a tournament, which really doesn't mean that much ultimately? I see a part of myself where I and that's the things are in my way, right? Things are blocking me
mm, mm,
from
mm.
achieving this thing. So if my 18-month-old son starts crying and needs me while I'm trying to hit balls in the backyard, if I'm on a singular destination, I have to reach this thing in 3 months, then that's blocking me, and that can make me angry. But if it's a pilgrimage and it's a um, maybe this is helpful in some way, and that's hard for me to get to, maybe that's hard for everybody to get
Yeah,
to, maybe this is
yeah. I
helpful,
think it
or
is.
I can use this in some way, then it's um, I don't know, do I become more resilient? But am I a worse golfer because I didn't get to practice? I don't know. These are the things that kind of go through my head all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. Andy, do you have the thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, and I'm just sort of listening to, what you're saying in comparison to say because I actually went back and listened to our conversation only a few days back just to refresh on what was said, and what you're and what you've said today might have been in the back of your head sort of back then, but it was a different sort of conversation because we were talking about having a full life. And the fact that if you don't play well, and wasn't specifically the mid-am or qualifying for the mid-am, but if you don't play well, it's okay. It's that acceptance sort of concept that we were talking about. And yeah, I mean, I've got a family, and I've got got great mates, and I've got all this other stuff that's going in my life because my life is full. Is golf important? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And this pilgrimage that we're on, it's important, and there are certain things that I want to achieve in golf, and a couple of them are singular, sort of similar to that. I'd love to play in the Australian Open, like the professional event Australian Open. I tried to pre-queue for the Aussie Open sort of 25, 30 odd years ago, but didn't get there. I would love to play in that and potentially be low amateur in that event. That's a singular sort of goal, but if I don't get there, it's still okay because I've got all this other stuff in my life, which I don't. Yeah, it takes away from the singular focus of playing golf, but that's good because you need balance. And I remember my dad used to say to me when I was a lot younger and living at home, he used to say, "Oh, you need to broaden your horizons because not everyone wants to hear what you had on the eighth hole." And
No one wants
you
to.
know, and that's why we started a podcast, because now we get to talk about what
You
we
get
had
to
on the
talk about
first
the
and the
eighth hole.
second and the
Yeah.
third.
Yeah.
So, but the concept is there is that you need to have balance. You need to have more in your life than
Mm,
just golf. So if you don't perform as you want to in golf, then it's still okay.
mm,
Because we're on a journey or pilgrimage, and part of that is being the best you can be.
mm,
Does that mean you get to where you want to end up being? Maybe, maybe not. But it's part of pushing yourself as far as what you can, and being or accepting what the outcome at the end of that.
mm. Yeah. The challenge there is I look back at my journey back then in 2016, 2017. I kind of set off on this journey in August of 2016. I started working with an instructor for the first time in 8 years or something, and I was only 25 or so. And I said, okay, I'm going to completely put results on the back burner. I'm just going to dive in and just try to become a better golfer. That's all I care about now, is just try to become a better golfer. And I was able to genuinely say, I can accept any result. I don't need to finish well in tournaments. I don't need to lower my scoring average. I just simply want to become a better golfer. And, that at the time I was living with my parents. I had some odd jobs. I worked at a golf course, but it was very selfish. It was just Josh. And I was, it, it got to a point where I was like, fully, this is all I am. And that's all I was from the time I was 12 to 25, was a golfer. That's all.
Mm.
There was no balance, right? It was just a
Yep.
golfer. During
Yep. Mm.
school, it was how quickly can I go play golf,
Yeah.
or to go to
Yep.
college. I'm just going to, because I can play on the golf team. So I, that stayed that way. And I said, I had this goal back then of I want to play and win the US Mid Am. That was the goal back then, just as it is, 7 years later. So I'm going along, and I'm blinders on, completely focused, doing this completely selfish pursuit. And then I met my, at the time, girlfriend, now wife, in basically a year later, after having been on this completely selfish thing for a year. And she introduced that balance to me. She introduced, there's more to life than golf. There's You can leave golf at the golf course and turn it off and be present somewhere else. You don't have to be thinking about it constantly. And what's crazy is in focusing less on golf, I started getting better at accessing the skill that I had developed. Now, the year up to that point, or the 13 years up to that point, I was developing skill that I don't know if I, and here's the conflict is I don't know how well I would have developed skill across that 1 year if she had been there all along. So I don't know if I would have taken longer to develop that same amount of skill if that year, because it was so focused and blinders on, I was able to, make a swing change quicker or get better at my putting or whatever it is, practice more. I was sun up to sundown every day. So I wonder if that focus helped me acquire skills, but not quite getting the results I wanted out of it. But then when she came in to the picture, now all of a sudden I let go of golf a little bit. I was able to say, okay, golf's not all that matters. So however this tournament goes, I'm cool with, right? Because she doesn't care. I mean, she'll ask about it, but she doesn't care. So now I'm accepting of the result in a tournament. I can let it go, which helped me access my skill. And I darn near won the US Mid Am. And I won two huge events right before that. You talk about the Aussie Open or the New South Wales Open. I won the Carolinas Open, kind of our North and South Carolina.
That's huge. Yeah.
I won that one in 2017, and that was a month after I met her. So it was very correlated. So as I sit here now, I still have that conflict of, boy, I know I got really good being selfish pursuit Josh. But then I actually did well when I was balanced Josh. So I'm sitting here saying, either how do I get the best of both, or do I need to be one or the other? And
I think Andy Walker and I are looking at each other having a bit of a giggle because we know that you know the answer to this as you're talking to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do know.
They're both the ingredients, right? You needed that immersion in swing and technique and training and practice and discipline and all those things. And you needed the balance that your beautiful wife has now provided. And you would not be and you would not have been the player that you were and are without both of those pieces of the puzzle.
Right.
And let's also face some facts here, Josh. Andy and I are straddling either side of 50. You've got youth on your side in comparison, my friend.
No, I'm getting old
100%.
already.
100%.
you are not fighting the physical battles that we're fighting at this point. And I mean, look, we're doing okay. Don't no issues there. But there are challenges. Like as the years progress, things get a little bit more physically difficult because you don't get younger and more flexible and fitter or any of those sorts of things. But you're still in your prime, my man. You're still in your prime, and I think at the moment this is just it's a really interesting kind of crisis. But I do feel that, as was originally, both of those elements were so important to be put together to make you who you are, that at the moment all of these elements and all of these obstacles are there for a reason for you, without getting too philosophical on it. But I think that they're all part of that challenge and part of that journey, part of that pilgrimage to make you what you need to be come the moment. And whether that moment is the mid-am or whether that moment is another moment, who's to know?
Yeah.
But it's all adding up to something.
See, one of the things that I actually wrote it down when I was listening to our previous conversation was around letting go of the outcome and being invested in a bigger picture and a bigger perspective. And that's not just golf related, I think you can apply that to life as well. And I think what one of the other quotes you said was you need to let go of control in order to gain
To
control.
gain control.
Yeah, and you know, I've thought more and more about those things that you've said, and they just make so much sense, and especially when you start bringing, whether it be marriage or kids or whatever it is, you bring those into your life, and your life becomes more complex. Your life becomes fuller, but becomes more complex. But sometimes you've just got to let go of it and go, it is what it is. And then I think you gain a bit of control or a lot of control of the process when you accept it.
Mm.
So, talking, you can apply it to golf and you can also apply that to life. And I think
Mm.
they're just as applicable.
Yeah. Do you guys, I don't know, maybe Steve, you could uh, chime in. I know you said you both have two kids. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah.
So just just purely practically speaking, just nuts and bolts. Steve, how much time do you get to, or do you set aside for yourself a week to do golf related things?
Yeah, that is a very interesting question with my setup at the moment. So I live in regional New South Wales in a small city called Dubbo, which is about 500 kilometres from Sydney, which is the capital city.
Mm,
And it's a small place, 50,000 people. So there are some schools,
mm,
but the certain subjects that my daughter wanted to study when she started high school, at the age of 12, which was started last year, weren't offered at the schools that we have here. So my kids are actually going to a school in another city, or town, 40,000 people,
mm,
which is about 125 kilometers away. I can't live there full time because my work precludes me from doing it. So I'm
mm,
splitting my time between the two places, 3 days a week with the family, 4 days a week, here in Dubbo, which is a massive challenge. Okay.
mm,
Full time work, and then I'm driving, sort of 130 k's either direction once a
mm,
week for that sort of thing. The advantage that that's provided for me is that it's enabled me to actually practice a bit on the days that I'm at home alone in the evenings and in the morning.
mm,
So that's good. But the challenge is that it's actually really restricted my ability to play competitive golf on weekends because that's the time that I'm then with the family. So it's this yin and yang kind of challenge.
sure.
Um, but but then at the same time, what I have also done, so my daughter is now 13, my son is 11. What I've been trying to do is to engage. My son's a lot more interested in sport in general. So, I get him to come along and caddy for a while,
Mm,
when or practice with me or do those sorts of things, which is cool. And obviously he's 11, so I can do that. It's a bit harder with an 18-month-old. He's not going to carry you back. Um,
no.
but it's, it's one of those things where it's boom and bust. I might have times where I can spend, like a few hours at a time, and then I might go for a week where I actually don't really have any time, and I've got to squeeze things in, and then I'll, forever juggling the calendar to go, when am I going to have a weekend when I can squeeze a competitive round in, and then something comes up and that drops off, and then that frustration builds. I know what you're talking about, but it's trying to, and the way I've dealt with it, I think, is to understand that golf is a priority for me in my life for all the good things that it delivers: health, mental health, be able to be home, be present, and all the rest of it. My kids are a priority for me in my life. My wife is a priority for me in my life. And they all have to be prioritized. And that can feel like it can compete, but I don't look at it like that. I'm looking at it as being fortunate enough to have a number of priorities that I
Mm,
absolutely want to try and do the best that I can by, without letting any of them down, which
mm,
is very hard.
yeah. That's
Interesting that
a
I did not mention
reframe.
work as a priority, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we all learned something there.
Podcasting is a priority, though.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you
Podcasting
did
is,
mention podcasting. That's
yeah,
a
yeah,
given. I think
yeah,
that's just a
yeah,
given.
yeah, yeah. So I think for me that's the thing. It's it's about trying to do the best you can by all of those elements and all of the opportunities and the times that you can, and finding the ways to maximize them to the best of your ability,
Mm,
rather than feeling like you got to give one up for the other.
mm. Yeah. That's I love they're not competing hobbies. You get to have multiple things that you love to do. So
Yeah, how cool is that?
that's very cool. If back when I was only a golfer, I only had
Yeah,
one thing that I liked to
yeah.
do, and I really really liked to do it, but um yeah, my life was probably void of a lot of joy and a lot of real satisfaction and meaning, uh Andy, to use your word. So that's I need to chew on that one. That's a reframe from the way I think about it. It as of now, I feel like it's all the things in my life are competing against each other, right?
Mm.
I have to shove work away, like force it away so that I can finally play golf or finally spend time with my son or wife, uh, or do nothing, right? I never just get to do nothing. I don't know if
No one does.
any of
No one
us
does.
three get to do nothing,
Yeah.
No.
but
No.
it feels like a competition. That's absolutely how it feels to me right now. And
And so with that though, then whenever you're with any one of those parts of your life, you might be with your partner, you might be with your child, you might be with your golf. You're never fully with them because there's
oh
always the
man,
feeling of the other ones that you're letting down. All right, I'm
man,
living this all the time because of the being stretched between two places.
yep,
And that's where uh, being getting into a situation where I can appreciate that I can only be in one place at one time, like physically.
right,
And then understanding then, well, all right, maybe mentally I should only be in one place at one time.
mm,
Because if I'm not doing that, I'm not doing justice to the place that I am.
yeah,
I feel like it was even your own words that might have been get your head where your feet are.
mm,
Um,
sounds
you
like
know,
me.
yeah. And it's so true.
Mm,
And
yeah,
if you can commit yourself fully and 100% wherever you are and whatever you're doing without the worry of I'm letting someone else down, because if that's the case, then go and be there.
yeah. Yeah, you're doing a disservice, or I do a disservice. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah,
Um, because all day from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., I'm talking to clients about golf, right?
yeah,
I'm mental coaching, golf psychology coaching clients, and I give my best to them. And then my wife and son get my leftovers, right?
yeah,
They get the worst of me because I'm worn out. I've given my best all day. Now I don't have anything left. And that probably comes a little bit from that competition mentality, or the mental time travel mentality, or my head isn't where my
yeah,
feet are. When I'm with my wife and son, I um I'm not at work anymore, right? Now I'm here. If I'm not giving them my best, then probably my mind is somewhere else, or my mind wishes I was doing nothing, or my mind wishes I was finally just getting to hit a golf ball or something. So
mm,
if I would be able to reframe that and say, um, one, I get to be here, right? I go to a counselor, and I talk about, my wife won't let me go play golf. And he said, wow, what a shame. Your wife wants to be with you.
to
You have
spend time with you. Yeah,
a beautiful
yeah,
woman that wants to spend time with you poor
I know.
guy. So
Yeah,
if I was just able to kind of realize, like, kind of step back and say, okay, this isn't a have to, this is a get to, and I'm going to choose to be here, then it would probably change how much juice I can wring out of what I'm doing right now. And then when I go play golf, I'm there, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not like I feel guilty because I shoved everything else out of the way and I'm finally getting to play golf. It's a more of a rich experience because now I'm here and I'm choosing to be here. So I don't know. Andy, do you have thoughts? I'm sure you do. You
Yeah,
always have
yeah.
thoughts.
Look, uh, again, and I just sort of think back to, well, I think of my situation and how I try and deal with it and structure my life and the so-called competing interests of my life. I'm a planner, right? So
Mm.
I plan everything, and I mean I've seen, and we've talked about your custom weekly practice
Mm.
plan, right? Extrapolate that out to your life, and that's what I
Mm.
do. So
Right.
basically, I run my life in 3 month blocks. So each quarter, leading up to that quarter, I will plan out the next quarter in my calendar. I've got a template in Excel, but then I put it in my calendar. I take it out of Excel, put it in my calendar, and that's planned to the nth degree,
Mm.
to a point
Like
where
6
I'm
a.m.
like,
wake up, brush teeth.
yeah,
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 he
yeah.
does. He does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so six
I do the same thing.
6:15.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6:15. I've got a sort of gym set and cross trainer in the garage. So I do a workout sort of 6:15 or 6:30 to 7:15. Then I get the kids up for school between 7:15 and 8 o'clock. Getting the kids ready for school. Then I walk the dog between 8:30 and 9 o'clock. Then I've got my clients that I work with between sort of 9 o'clock to midday. Between midday and 12:30, that's when I go out. I've got for Christmas we've got my family bought me a practice net and a practice mat, so I'm out just
Nice.
hitting golf balls for half an hour in the practice net. 12:30, I'm back at work again. Go pick the kids up at 5 o'clock. And I've got sort of between 5 and say 7:30 with my kids. So because and every day is planned out like that to the nth degree.
Mm.
So I know that, say, between 12 and 12:30, when I'm playing, in the garage, hitting golf balls into the net, I know I've got time to do my client work. I know
Mm.
I've got time to be able to spend with my family. I know I've got time for my fitness work, and to make sure that I'm going to be physically capable for the next sort of 10, 20 years to continue
Mm.
my golfing pilgrimage.
Mm.
So for me, and having that discipline, and a lot of people see discipline as a negative thing. I
Mm.
see discipline actually as a bit of a sort of freeing thing, in
Mm.
in that it allows me to focus on what's in my calendar and what's in my schedule at that particular time, knowing that
Mm.
I've got time allocated for family, work, fitness, health. Doesn't matter what it is, it's all planned.
Mm.
So that
Yeah.
really works for me. So it's an extrapolation of what you do with the custom weekly practice plan,
Right.
but not just golf wise, extrapolating that out for
Right.
life.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause
And
well, I'm sorry. The idea is, and that's awesome. I love that. And it probably doesn't fly for everybody, as far as the nitty gritty. You mean I know when I'm going to brush my teeth every day, that kind of thing. But
Mhm.
the, the purpose of that detail in the practice plan is to know when I'm working on approach block practice, I don't, and it's only 15 minutes long. I don't go an extra 20 minutes trying to hit good 7 irons, because I know I need that time, that 20 minutes for something else. Right.
Yes.
And,
Mm.
and I'm not going to take that approach block practice to hit drivers just because I want to hit drivers, right? I'm tired of hitting irons. I'm hacking it. I just want to hit drivers and let loose. I have a 15-minute driver time, right? To that has already been set aside. So during that 15 minutes, you can know I'm here in this 15 minutes. This is all that matters, because I know I'm going to get 15 minutes to do something else. And the knowledge that you have other things already planned allows you to be present. That's exactly the purpose of the practice plan. So
Yeah.
that's what you do for your life. That's I try to do the same thing. I'm looking at my calendar right here on my other screen, and it's pretty much fully planned out. I do that. I guess I guess for me the challenge is the okay, I'm gonna plan it out. How how much permission do I need to get? Like, how much am I allowed? How much time am I allowed in a family, in a business perspective? Too much golf will make other things get worse, right? If I plan every afternoon for 3 hours to go play golf, I don't have enough time to work with clients. My business will suffer, and my relationship with my family will suffer. So it has to be balanced. Uh,
Yes.
Andy, do you take that into account when you're planning? Do you say, okay, I know I need 2 hours of this, and I know that I need 8 hours of this. Do you look at it like that across a quarter of I have quotas that I need to meet with certain things?
To a certain extent, yes. I've got an idea of how much work I need to do in order to achieve the income that I want.
Yeah.
So obviously that's planned out, and my client work is planned out accordingly. Um, with time with family, I know, and again, I've got family goals. I've got goals of what I want to achieve with my wife, with what I want to achieve with my kids, how I want to try and influence them. And obviously, you can't influence them 100%, but
Mm.
certainly at the ages my kids are, my daughter's 7 and my son's 11. So there's still a fair influence that I've got for the next few years, and still until they get to teenagers, and then they just won't listen to a
They
thing I
don't
have to
care
say.
about you. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so
It's not that bad.
that's really
Not that bad.
that's really important to me to be able to spend that time, especially now, in the important phases of their life.
Hmm.
So I sort of reverse engineer it to a certain extent where I know how much time I need to spend on each, and then try and work backwards
Mm.
with each quarter. So I know that in order for me to achieve my golfing goals, I need to be able to have that sort of half an hour where I go and hit balls into the net, and do the deliberate practice with my swing. I've got short game and putting goals, so a couple of times a week I've got time allocated for short game and putting. It's not a huge amount of time. It's only one's 30 minutes and the other one's an hour, so it's not a huge amount of time that I've got. But I know that at this point in time where I'm at in my life, that that's what's appropriate.
Mm.
I know that the goals that I have with my kids, you know, in 3 years' time, or with my daughter, it's probably a little bit longer than that, but certainly with my son, in 3 or 4 years' time, when he's a teenager, that's gone.
Mm.
I'll never get that back. So that's really important.
Hmm.
And certainly, again, the time that I spend with my wife, I want to be able to cultivate a healthy relationship with my wife. So again, I've got to spend time there. I've got to be able to, and that's important to me. It's not that I've got to spend time there. It's important for me to spend time there, to be able to maintain that relationship. So yeah, there's probably, I probably don't spend enough time with her, but when you've got sort of kids and the rest, it
Mm.
starts become a bit more complex. But she's also, we make sure that she's got enough time for her as well, and she's got a couple of pursuits that she engages in. And we've always had a mindset of, okay, well, if you've got a goal, let's talk about how we can how you can achieve it, rather than, oh no, you can't do that, you don't have time to do it. Well, okay, well,
Right.
Yeah.
let's try and figure out how we can do it, and at least go through the process to find out if we can do it. If we can't, if there's not enough time, then, like, me trying to
At least
qualify
you
for the
know.
Australian Open, this year or next year, it's not going to happen just because I there's not enough time in the day.
Hmm.
Well, there
Hmm.
is, but I would have to completely
You got to
eliminate all.
sacrifice other things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I've got to sacrifice
You don't
too
want to do
much
that.
to be able to get
Right.
there, and
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. That's a 5-year goal for me.
Mhm. Right.
Um, which is, comes back to then, the other things in my life to be able to support that long-term goal, and to ensure that what I'm doing now is the important things for what I've got in my life right now.
Mm,
And that's where sort of goals and priorities need to, you need to really sort of sort through what those goals and priorities
mm.
are for where you are currently in your life.
Steve, do you get that
Yeah,
detailed?
I've I've got a random anecdote for you,
Okay.
Josh, because that's more how I roll rather than detailed planning. Okay, random
Okay.
anecdotes is my version
Okay.
of detailed planning.
You just fly by the
So
seat of your pants. You just do whatever
yeah,
you want.
no,
Go with the flow.
no,
Yeah.
I both Andy and I actually have an operational background, so we're pretty
Yeah.
good on the process. Um, but this actually is a story that went back when my daughter, who's my eldest, was born. Um, about halfway through the pregnancy was when I commenced my MBA. Okay, so I was working full time. Wife was working full time in early 30s, and I thought, "Ah, now's the perfect time to go back to uni and finally do my master's of business." Great idea.
We
Um,
still had youth on your side in your early 30s.
Yeah.
yes, take note,
Apparently.
Josh.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, yeah. So so to the extent that when the day that my daughter was born, I had to leave the hospital a couple of hours later to go home and log on to do an accounting exam
Mhm.
because it had to be done on a specific date.
Yeah.
And then I went back to the hospital. Now, the reason that I share that story is that it took me about 6 years from start to finish to get through the whole thing because I was doing things part-time basis whilst working full time. So I would be going to the library on the weekend to write assignments and do research and do all those sorts of things that you needed to do. It felt like it was reasonable because it was serious business pursuit, that
Mm,
was probably going to result in financial return at some point in the future. But it was still very, very selfish at the period of time where we went through having two young kids and I was disappearing for 6, 7 hours, every weekend to go and study because you couldn't really do it in the house.
right.
So so the reason that I've raised that is because in terms of it dragging me away from the family, it was probably more than golf and having a serious tilt at golf. But it felt a lot more socially acceptable when Beck was
Right.
talking, my wife was talking to her friends going, "Oh yeah, Steve's at the library studying a golf and he's at the range and he's practicing and those sorts of things." That would not wash, right?
Right.
Why?
Mm,
Both of those things are important to me.
mm,
Why is one of them more socially acceptable? And as a result of that, within our own minds, why do we squash down that golfing dream
mm,
when we're happy to go, well, I'll pursue that study dream? Mind you, the MBA is far more expensive than being a
mm.
golfer as well. So,
Okay.
you know, that was
Do
another
you,
piece of the puzzle.
well, do you, because there's a real pragmatic reason why an MBA might be more socially acceptable because golf, I don't know, were you doing the MBA just on a lark because it was fun or
No, and it wasn't.
right, right. And sometimes
and it
golf
has,
isn't
and
either,
it,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the,
and it has obviously helped me earn more money subsequent to earning it, and that's all fine. Like that, obviously those are the answers. But
right.
I guess the point is that it's about pursuing something that is important to you. This was
Yeah.
important to me to do that because I had career goals that I wanted to achieve, and that was a way of doing it.
Yeah.
Um, but I could just as easily say I want to, you know, qualify and win the US mid am because I want to play at the Masters, and that could lead to a very, very lucrative,
That's true.
future of earning a
Make a big
lot of money
difference.
through golf.
Yeah.
And why is that any different to 6 years at uni?
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. And um, I agree completely. That's sometimes a hard sell to make, right?
Yeah, totally.
Um, but that brings into kind of conversation of kind of the value of things. Is
Mm,
money necessarily more valuable than kind of peace of mind or healthy balance or mental health, the mental health benefits that you get from doing a hobby, right?
mm,
And you know, I I've kind of been going through a thing, and it's a fortunate place to be of, how much money is enough, right? You don't just infinite amounts of money. It would feel nicer and you could buy more fun things and you could do more fun things and play
mm,
more golf probably, but you know, mo money, mo problems. If you if you make more money, you have more responsibility. You have to work to make that much more money, right? You have to work more hours to sustain that amount of money. And so it's the trade-off of, okay, we got more money, we can buy a bigger house, whatever, we can buy another car, but
mm,
I'm kind of miserable all the time. I kind of don't get to do anything I want to do. I have to spend time less with you guys, with wife and son, and I I rarely get to play golf, much more rarely than I did before. But we got more money, so at a certain point, you have to say, okay, what really matters and how much of it matters, right? If we're talking about goals and reaching, like I want to influence my kids, none of that has nothing to do with how much money you make, right? I guess
totally,
you
totally.
could
No,
use money
it
to
really
do it,
doesn't.
right?
Yeah,
But it really
yeah, to a
doesn't,
degree.
right?
I think we're coming back to this priorities point, and I think it's so critical. And I don't think it's a point that enough people think about often enough. You know, because we we really so often sleepwalk our way through years and years in our life and get to a point and then turn around and go, what happened there? What, you know, what did I do with my 30s? What did I do with my 40s? What did I do with
Mm.
my 20s? Understandable if you don't really know what you did with your 20s, but that's a separate issue for another podcast. Um, but
Yeah.
actually taking stock and going, what is important to me? You know, what are my values? What are
Mm.
my desires? And can I be honest with myself about that? You know, what do I really want out of my time?
Mm.
And that opportunity cost of for me to pursue that, if I genuinely really want that, what else will
Yeah.
have to give? And am I okay with that?
Right.
Um, or do I need to, seek greater balance in certain areas or any of those types of things? And also, have I talked to the people around me about what they want from me and what
Yeah.
their thoughts are and their expectations are, and how supportive they are of the things that I want that maybe I haven't spoken about because I kind of haven't had the courage to verbalize them, because I haven't even really been honest with myself about how much I really wanted it. Wow, this is getting deep, Andy Walker.
No,
Um,
It is.
but
It is.
you're nailing it.
it's being able to pull that apart and actually identify, going, I actually really want to do this thing, and this does really mean a lot to me, and it's going to take me 12 months.
Yeah.
And is it okay for the people around me to support me through that? Probably
Hmm.
will be. And what other
Yeah.
things can I balance, and how can I structure things, and how can I change some of the other things for a period of time, because it's not forever.
Right.
Give it a crack, and know at that point that I have given it a crack with no regrets because I gave it my best,
Yeah.
rather than give it a crack with resentment and,
Yeah. Guilt.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And to Andy's point of kind of planning, when when you kind of have that conversation, ask those questions of what do you want from me? What do I want? And let's get all that clear.
Mm,
Then you go through the next year or however long intentionally rather than, like you said, sleepwalking
yeah.
through the next year. And that next year is, you might you're kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Okay, I kind of want to be with family, but I also really wish I was playing golf. You talk about resentment. And when I'm playing golf, I I don't really know why I'm doing this. I'm just doing it because I like golf, and that's not intentional enough. That's not specific enough. That's having
Yeah.
that kind of reason why you're doing it is a bigger part. And I don't know if just qualifying for the US Mid Am is enough of a reason for me. And to my wife's credit, she says, go play golf. You come back a better person every time you go play golf because it's healthy, right?
God, I wish
It's
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
right. See, I know sometimes maybe I seem like a better person, but I don't feel like a better person. Uh,
Yeah.
but the idea of, okay, I know, and I love the quarterly goals thing. I'm going to probably steal that from you, Andy. The planning ahead of time, more
Yep.
bigger plan than rather than just this week. I do a Sunday evening kind of thing of what do I need to do this week, but that keeps me to, um,
It's operational planning rather than strategic.
yeah, I don't ever do any kind of strategic planning, and
Yeah.
that the value of that says, okay, that kind of threads together an entire year rather than I'm just kind of like just getting by every week. What do I want over the next year or the next 3 months? That allows me to kind of say, okay, uh here's what I want out of the next 3 months. And here's how I'm going to do it. Right. If I just say, okay, 1 week at a time, I don't really know why I'm doing any of the things that I'm doing, right? I'm just kind of
Totally.
doing, right?
Totally. I want to take you a step forward further on this one, Josh. So when the reason to come back to it, because you did actually ask that question, why did I choose to go back to uni and study that
Mm.
master's degree? Okay. And it was not just for fun, because it was not fun. But the reason was that I was in my early 30s at the time, and I was talking to a career psychologist for as part of an assessment for another role that I was going for anyway. The question was asked is, what is your ultimate career goal? And I went, oh, I want that general manager job, and I want sort of that next one, vice president role, you might call it in the US. I don't know.
Mm.
Um, and that was the next job. And, because that's most people think next job, next task. And her response was, no, you're 31 now. When you're 50, what do you want your career defining role to be by the time you're
Mm.
50 or 55 or whatever the case may be? Because your answer to that question might mean that your next step is not linear, that it is in fact sideways or circular to get you to
Mm.
that point, that you might need to get out of the industry, you might need to get out
Yeah.
of the.
Might be backwards.
Yeah, that's right. And so I guess what I'm driving at here is that we've got this goal at the moment that's the next step for you, and that's where we've got the obstacle. But what does that full long-term career look like for you within golf,
Right.
for argument's sake, or within life, however you want
Yeah.
to frame it? And how does what you're doing at the moment serve to
Serve it.
move you in that direction?
Right.
And that's another way completely of looking at it as well.
Totally. Yeah, that's a much bigger picture way. And I do those check-ins from time to time. Every morning I journal, and oftentimes that journaling involves, what do I want out of life? But that's so usually still really narrow-minded of yesterday sucked and I just don't want to do that anymore, right? I don't want to
Yeah.
be on Zoom calls all day with clients, right? And and that's too narrow-minded because that takes no account of, well, these days might be serving something in the future. And in the same way of, man, I spent Sunday with my son and he was throwing tantrums all day. And if
You're going to
I,
miss that.
right, that's what everyone
Yeah.
tells me. And I'm baffled that I would miss little tantrums, but I'll take your words for it.
Yeah.
But I, if I just wake up Monday morning and say, wow, that was exhausting. That sucked. How can we not have any more tantrums? That is too narrow minded, because the Sunday tantrums is an opportunity for me to influence my son of, here's how we
Yeah.
handle difficult things, right? And
Yeah.
if I take a long-term view and say, here's what I want to be for my son, or here's what I see for my son to be, then it influences what I do on that Sunday. And if I'm in just the weekly grind of, I'm just trying to find time to play golf, well, then every Sunday tantrum is going to be blocking me from getting what I want and keeping me from reaching the career that I want or whatever.
Mm.
So you got to take, I'm seeing this more now after this conversation,
Mm.
that you got to take the bigger picture view, or the small picture is just unintentional. It's sleepwalking. It's like, how quickly can I get
Mm.
through this to get to the next thing? But then your mind is at the
Mm.
next thing already. You might as well
Mm.
go ahead and do that. So, um, man, that's so interesting. That's some reframing happening here today
Awesome.
for me. Yeah.
That's good.
Uh,
See, there's a few things that I've and I was just listening to what Steve was talking about in where his career has gone, and the conversation that he was having um, with the career
yeah.
person. And I look at my business, and I mean, I've got a professional services business in the accounting industry, and part of a franchise. And it's just me. Like I don't have employees. I've got a number of clients that I service,
Mm-hmm.
but there are other franchisees within the network that have quite large businesses. They've got multiple employees. They've got a lot. They earn a lot more money than what I do. Um, but it's a singular focus for them. Like they're focused on their business, and they don't have a lot else in their business. They spend an enormous amount of time in their business, and yeah, they're doing quite well out of it. But I look back at what I've got, and I've got a lot of flexibility. It's just me. I don't have to,
Doesn't answer to
to
anybody.
yeah, to answer to anyone. I mean, I'm, quite active within sort of investing and
Mm-hmm.
stock market and property investing. That's a really big interest for me for sort of long-term wealth creation. I can, if something happens, if one of my kids is sick at school, I can drop what I'm doing and go and pick them up and spend the afternoon with them, and just reschedule the work that I've got. Um, so yeah, I mean, while money is important, we live in a capitalistic society. Like money, gives us a certain amount of freedom. We need to buy stuff. We need to pay the mortgage. We need to buy food and golf
Golf
memberships
clubs.
and golf balls and
Yeah.
exactly. You knew exactly where I was going
Most
with that,
importantly.
Steve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but but you're right in how much is enough?
Mm,
Do you need to earn, three, four, 500, $1 million? Like, do you need to earn
No.
that much? Or, can you earn less
mm,
to have more in
mm,
your life? Which
mm.
is sort of what I see in that I see others that, yeah, they're bringing in more money from their business, but they don't have more in their life than what I do.
Right.
Mm.
Which is where I think your priorities need to be. And yeah, I've thought about expanding the business. I've thought about employees at different times. I've sort of been motivated to do it, but then I always come back to, what, I've got a pretty good setup where I am in that I'm able to have this balance in my life and this full life where I'm
Mm.
able to have different interests. I don't see them as competing interests. They're different interests.
Yeah.
Um, but that's where my planning comes in to be able to manage
Yeah.
those, time in those interests. But then also having, the openness and the communication with, and not just with my wife, but with my kids as well, as to, okay, well, it's not just about me. It's something, a bit bigger than that, or a lot bigger than
Mm.
that. So, we're all part of, this family, and what do we do, and
Yeah.
how do we plan it so that we're all getting what we want out of our situation?
Right. Right. So, uh, as Steve, do you have anything that you're any ways that in the along these veins of I need to get better at X. I need to get better at blank. I still struggle with this part of it. So I really need to improve this part of it. Andy's clearly got it all together. He's got it all figured out and
Yeah, yeah,
planned
yeah,
out over the
yeah,
next 3
yeah,
months. But Steve,
yeah.
I see you and me as we're just wandering around
We're
aimlessly.
just
Yeah.
doing the best we can, mate. We're doing the best we can.
There aren't many of us that've got it all together.
Says the guy that
So
shot 2 under par today.
yeah, exactly. See, he's got it. Mr.
Got
Perfect
it all
over here.
together. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
areas that I need to improve in at the moment is short game, putting, approaches, and tee shots.
This is a golf podcast. I forgot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No,
What
I
about
mean,
the mental game? Like, you missed the mental game.
Yeah. The
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
underlying backbone of it all.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's so interesting the way that the conversation's drifted. And so many times when we've been talking about, you know, families and work and commitments and all these sorts of things, and, the concept of, sort of not being fully present in one endeavor because you're worried about letting something else down, and you're, worried about the next thing that you've got to work, that you've got to do, and, all those sorts of things. It sounds like a round of golf, Josh. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, I'm standing on the 14th tee, still stressing about the putt that I missed on 13 and worrying about the carryover water that I'm going to hit on 15 and
Mm-hmm.
all these
100%.
things. You know, I believe it may have been a quote that golf is the closest game to life. You get good breaks from bad shots and bad breaks from good shots, but you got to play it as it lies. I know that's one of your favorites, Andy Walker, but I just
Yeah.
butchered it. But that's the reality, and for me, I am always still battling with that analogy of stressing over the putt I just missed on the next tee, or stressing about the thing that I've got to do, on the following hole whilst I'm still playing this one. And I do that all the time in life, and stuff gets to you. And when you're under pressure, your resilience breaks down and you're
Mm-hmm.
not as good at handling those things. And when from a psychology perspective, when you are stressed, physically the blinkers come in to your ability to see the periphery. That's both physical and psychological.
Right.
So, the tunnel vision, which was the caveman's way of focusing on the important, we still grapple with that all the time. And to be able to stop that sequence and pull yourself back and see the bigger picture, absolutely is something that I battle with every single day. And that's why we still have arguments with people that we love,
Right.
and it's going to happen. So yeah,
Yeah.
what am I working on? Owning that sort of stuff, being better at it, saying sorry when I stuff it up, and trying to be better again next time. It's
Yeah.
just like golf.
Just like golf. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is amazing conversation, you guys. I think we outdid last time. I I've got some action items that I can take away from this for sure. I hope you guys do. I don't. This
Sure.
feels like a
Yeah.
therapy session for me, but I definitely have some things I'm gonna try to reframe and chew on, and yeah, try to implement into my own life so I'm not going through between now and the August qualifier just like, get out of the way. I just need to hit more golf balls and like quantity, and I just like everything's competing against golf, and
Because
that's how I
you know
am
it won't
currently.
work. You know it won't
Right.
work.
I know it won't. And I'm going to get to August and shoot a 75 and say, what was the point of all that? Right. I should
Yeah.
have just spent time. I should have been more balanced, which might have the positive effect of allowing me to free up on the actual day and access my skills better. So
Mm.
as hard as it is, letting go of control can help me gain control. Going in the opposite of what seems logical can actually help. So I need to apply that to my own life for sure.
Mm. I think just embracing it as well, in embracing the
Mm,
challenge, embracing the complexity, embracing the fullness of where life is.
Mm,
That also has an incredible freeing effect of, and what you said, just letting go of the control to be able to take back that control, just
yeah.
embracing it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Andy, Steve, I appreciate it. It's always fun talking to you guys. I hope we get to talk again soon.
yeah, yeah, likewise.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
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 Yeah,
All
for
right,
sure.
guys.
Yeah.
Take care. Have a good one.
All right. Cheers.
Thanks,
Thanks,
buddy.
Josh.
See you, Josh.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
There you have it, pilgrims. That was one almighty conversation. And I think, yeah, I'm going to need a little bit of time to unpack all of that, I think, Andy
Yeah.
Walker.
If I've ever described something as epic,
I know. Which,
that
to
would
be
have to
fair,
be
you
it.
have on a number of
Yeah,
occasions
on a
during the
number of
history of the
occasions.
Missing Men's
Yeah.
Golf Show. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, look, it's just, and look, I know Josh at the end, he talks about how much he's got out of the conversation, and on when he released this conversation on his podcast, he talked about us guys being 17, 18 years older than him with more life experience and having been through certainly from a journey of raising kids, we're a little bit further along the line than what
Mm.
he is. But the amount that we've got from him and the value that he's provided for us over the last couple of conversations has just been enormous. Like it's pushed me so much further along the pilgrimage. And yeah, I'm indebted to him, we in a huge amount.
Look, I think there's no doubting that. And I was, it was funny because I was thinking similar things when I heard him wrapping up his episode and talking about that. And I couldn't help but think what I was like in my early 30s compared to the wisdom that that man possesses in his early
Yeah,
30s
for sure.
is streets apart, for the better for him more so than me. And, you know, what a dad he will be for his young son. I think he will be a fantastic role model and a fantastic mentor and a fantastic coach. And I have reached out to Josh and said those things as well, because I think that sometimes you just need to hear that, because we all want to do the best we can, particularly as a parent, and you always feel like you're coming up short. But I think he'll be amazing and will do incredible things.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like what he's given us from a golf knowledge perspective, I hope we've repaid a little bit of that. I think the knowledge was in him anyway. I don't think we taught him anything he didn't already know. I think we were just pulling that out and highlighting, and in a lot of respects, like most of the time, we were actually just quoting himself back at him.
That's exactly what I was thinking. There was a number of times where I just
Yeah,
took what he said to us in episode 18 and
yeah,
just said that back to him. Like,
yeah, yeah.
you
A
know,
wise man
how,
once
how,
told
how
me,
good's that?
It's amazing. It really is amazing. But what's also amazing as well is when, for you and I, when we sit back and think about, we've been telling this story now since, what is it now? A bit over 6 months.
Yes.
It's not a long time. We've had a lot of development. We've learned a lot of lessons along the way. But the most important thing really is that we've met some amazing people,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
people like Josh, and others that we've had on the show, other guests that we've had on the show as well. And I just feel so fortunate through this platform actually to have been able to get to know these types of people and spend some time with them and pick their brains about things. And certainly in Josh's scenario, to be able to call him a friend, I think
Yeah.
that's really special.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, you mentioned the relationships that we've developed, and I certainly see Josh and our relationship with him as a quite a key long term relationship, and I think that's on a show level, but it's also on a personal level as well. I think we've
Absolutely.
got we've got a very similar mindset. We've got a very similar sort of predicament where, we can share those things and have really meaningful, coming back to that word, vulnerable conversations around what we're feeling and what we're doing. And it's not just golf, it's being a dad, it's work, it's fitting in, that full life that we talked about. And how we go about that full life in getting the most of it. So yeah, 100%. I think that yeah, Josh is going to be a long term guest, long term partner of and mate for both of us.
Yeah, definitely. And I, for one, absolutely sincerely hope that he does qualify for the US Mid Am. I hope he wins it.
Yeah,
uh, for his benefit to chalk that one up and tick that off the to-do list, but also because that gets him to qualify for the Masters. And we do now have an agreement that should that happen, that you and I both get to caddy for him at the
yes,
Masters. He'll be the only player in the
100%.
field with two caddies, which I think is something to look out for. So we can all hope that that happens, because that'll be a great trip.
Well, yeah, and I did say to him that our definitely a bucket list item for me is going to the Masters. Like I would like love having been a fan of the Masters since I was a quite a young bloke. It's yeah, it would be. I'd still remember watching Jack Nicklaus win the 1986 Masters. So that was the first Masters I actually watched live, and I was hooked ever since then. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, we better start making plans, because Josh is going to qualify, and if we're ever going to go, it's when a mate of ours is actually playing. Um,
absolutely, 100%.
so it's got to happen.
Yep.
Look, yeah, amazing for everyone out there that wants to hear a bit more about Josh, sort of on the other side of the conversation. Obviously, go back to episode 18 of the Missing Links Golf Show. You can hear some of his wisdom. But I thoroughly recommend jumping on board and checking out the Mental Golf Show.
Yeah.
It's a podcast that both Andy and I have loved listening to for quite a long time. There's a lot of fantastic episodes. There's a lot of really short little ones as well, where he just dives into one particular topic and has a chat. It might only be 10 or 20 minutes, along with others that are the full sort of hour long episode. So there's a bit for everyone. It's really interesting. He's got a great, unique take on the game, and I think a really mature head on his shoulders for someone so young, Andy Walker, but definitely a lot to offer in the thought space on the game of golf.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, reiterating that, I mean, even like pre-podcast, he was one of my key
Yeah,
golf commentators and podcasters that I was listening to. So that first opportunity we had to get him on the show, I mean, how stoked were we
yeah,
that
yeah.
he
It was
that
awesome.
he
It
actually
was
said
really,
yes.
really cool. Yeah,
Like we were
yeah,
like, wow.
yeah, yeah.
So
No.
yeah, no, 100% reiterate that.
Yeah, quality human. Get on board, ladies and gentlemen. Check him out. We'd love to hear from you on this topic. If there are questions, there was so much really good personal information that was being shared around in that episode. If there's further questions that you've got, you want to extend the conversation, you know where to find us. Our email address is the Missing Links Golf Show at gmail.com. Of course, you can find us on Facebook, the Missing Links Golf Show, on Insta at Missing Links Golf, or on X, where this whole conversation
Mm.
started. We are TML Golf Show on X. So find us there. Let us know your thoughts. If you've got some more ideas about how to juggle life and golf and relationships and everything else that's important to you, we'd love to hear all about it.
Sounds good.
Any final thoughts, Andy Walker?
Rock out, Pilgrims.
Nice.